Hello and welcome to Infinite Stories, the tool I've been working on for quite some time. Now you might have noticed that I'm changing a little bit, so I'm playing around with what I can do. And I bought a new microphone, I hope you noticed the difference. I prepared a story, I haven't read it yet, so I thought of a design, added everything, added some pictures with the generation tool I mentioned in a previous video, and we'll jump right in. The Circle of Fire. The air grew thin and sharp as they pushed deeper into the state forest, the kind of cold that clings to the hollows of your bones. Daniel, of course, was in his element, his broad shoulders cutting a path through the overgrown trade as if he were born to it. Behind him, Jens and Christine walked hand in hand, their laughter a warm, fleeting sound against the immense quiet of the woods. Clara stumbled along, her pack comically oversized, while James brought up the rear. A knot of unease tightening in his stomach with every step. He'd only come because Christine had insisted it would be fun. A last hurrah before summer ended. Now, surrounded by pines, so tall they seemed to scratch the bruised belly of the twilight sky, he felt like an intruder. They made camp in a small clearing, a natural bowl surrounded by a sentinel circle of ancient towering pines. Daniel directed the setup with practical ease, barking orders that Jens and Christine followed with good-natured obedience. James, get the firewood. Clara, try not to trip over the tent stake this time. James complied, venturing to the edge of the clearing, where fallen branches lay like skeletal remains. The trees seemed to lean in, the dark needles absorbing the last of the light, creating a profound, almost suffocating silence. It wasn't peaceful, it was watchful. As true darkness fell, they huddled around the crackling fire Daniel had built. The flames painted their faces in flickering shades of orange and black, a lone island of warmth in a vast cold sea. It was during a lull of their conversation, as Jens was tuning his small travel guitar, that James first heard it. A soft, sibilant sound, like sand skittering across paper. It was almost lost beneath the snap of burning wood, and the sighing of the wind as it moved through the high branches. He looked up, scanning the impenetrable wall of trees. "Did you guys hear that?" he asked, his voice softer than he intended. Daniel scoffed. "Hear what, scary cat? Wind?" Chapter 2. A walk in the woods. The sound came again, a little cleaner this time. It was a murmur, a current of whispers carried on the shifting breeze. It seemed to coil around the edges of the camp, a serpent of sound just beyond the firelight. Clara shivered, pulling her blanket tighter. "Just sounds like the wind, James. You're letting the dark get to you." James saw the way her eyes darted towards the trees, the flicker of the same unease he felt. The whispers were formless, yet they held an unsettling cadence, a rhythm that was almost conversational. Jens, ever romantic, saw an opportunity. He put down his guitar and leaned to whisper in Christine's ear, a secret that made her blush and giggle. "We're just going for a little walk," Christine announced, getting to her feet and pulling a willing Jens up with her. "Don't wait up." Daniel granted her disapproval. "Don't go far. It's easy to get turned around out here." Jens just laughed, his arms wrapped securely around Christine's waist. "We've got all direction we need," he said with a wink, and then they were gone. their forms swallowed by the oppressive darkness beyond the fire. The wind picked up, swirling ash embers into the air. With it, the whispers grew bolder. They were no longer a vague hiss, but a collection of distant, overlapping voices. James strained to listen, his heart hammering against his ribs. He could almost make out words, fragments of speech that felt tantalizing close. Then a single, clear sound cut through the murmur. It was a name, spoken in a soft, coaxing tone. Christine. It was followed another. Jens. The voices were coming from one direction, but from all around, as if the pines themselves had learned to speak. The sound of silence. Clara gasped, her eyes wide with terror. That sounded like my mom, she whispered, her voice trembling. James' blood ran cold. The voice had said Jens. It sounded eerie like his own father, a man dead for 10 years. Daniel on his feet now, his earlier bravado replaced by a tense, grim alertness. He grabbed the heavy-duty flashlight from his pack, its beam cutting a sharp, lonely cone into the inky black. Jens! Christine! He yelled, his voice sounding small and shallow by the woods. The whispering intensified, the two names repeated over and over, waving in and out of each other. Jens. Christine. Jens. Christine. The voices were a chorus of familiar ghosts, lost parents, old friends, forgotten teachers, all calling for the couple who had wandered into the dark. The wind hollowed, whispering the trees into a frenzy, their massive trunks groaning in protest. The sound was a deafening roar of rushing air and 1,000 whispering voices all calling the same two names. James and Clara huddled together, their faces pale in the firelight, their world shrunk to this tiny, besieged circle. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The wind died completely, the trees stood utterly still, the silence that fell was absolute, a heavy, suffocating blanket that was more terrifying than the noise it replaced. It was a predatory silence, the kind that comes with just before the strike. For a long, stretched moment, nothing happened. Then, a single, piercing scream ripped through the night. It was Christine. The sound was cut short, choked off with a wet, gurgling finality. Daniel didn't hesitate. "Stay here, don't leave the fire," he commanded, before plunging into the darkness, his flashlight beam bouncing frantically as he ran towards the sound. The echoes of the lost. The minutes stretched into eternity. James and Clara sat frozen, their eyes fixed on the spot where Daniel had disappeared. The fire crackled, the sound unnervingly loud in the profound stillness, every snap of a twig. Every snap of a twig. Sent a fresh jolt of adrenaline through them. They couldn't speak, as if afraid any sound they made would attract the attention of whatever was waiting in the silence. The only noise was in the ragged, panicked rhythm of their own breathing. Then the wind returned. It wasn't a howl this time, but a gentle, almost mournful sigh that drifted through the pines, and with it came the whispers. They were different now, weaker but more chilling. At first it was just one name, repeated in a desperate, pleading tone. Daniel. The voice was a hollow echo, a distorted mimicry of Christine's. A moment later another voice joined it, a guttural and frightening copy of Jens. Daniel. Then came a third voice, a perfect cold imitation of Daniel himself. Help me. Clara began to sob, her hands clamped over her ears. Make it stop, James, please, make it stop. But James couldn't move. It was mesmerized by the horrifying chorus. The forest was speaking with the voices of his dead friends. It wasn't just repeating their names, it was using them, twisting them into a lore. The whispers circled the camp, drawing closer with each gust of wind. They weren't just calling Daniel's name anymore. A new voice joined the choir, a soft, girlish whisper that sounded hauntingly familiar. It sounded like Clara. It was calling her name. Clara. The last embers. The fire was dying. The comforting orange glow striking to a sullen red pulse. The shadows of the great pines crept closer, their long dark fingers stretching towards the two survivors. The whispers were constant now, a maddening circle of sound. The stolen voice of Jens, Christine and Daniel were inwoven with the new horrifying echo of Clara's own voice, all of them repeating her name in a hypnotic, beckoning cadence. Clara, come to us, Clara. She was rocking back and forth, her eyes vacant with shock. They're out there, she mumbled. They're waiting. James grabbed her arm, his finger digging into her fleece jacket. Don't listen to them, Clara, it's a trick. But his own voice was thin, ready with fear. The unseen presence was a physical weight, pressing in on them from all sides. The air grew cold, a deep, unnatural chill that had nothing to do with the night. The fire sputtered a final ember, winking out, plunging them into near total darkness. The whispering stopped. Again, the dreadful, expectant silence fell over the clearing. From the blackness just beyond their dead fire came a sound, the slow, deliberate crunching of pine needles underfoot. It was a heavy tread, yet unnaturally quiet. Something was moving towards them. Clara let out a choked gasp and scrambled backwards. Away from James, away from the sound. A faint breeze stirred the air, and with it came one last whisper, no longer from the trees, but from right behind her. It was a perfect imitation of Daniel's voice, low and reassuring. It's okay, it said. I found them. Clara turned a fleeting look of hope on her face before she was violently yanked into the darkness. There was no scream, only the sound of something heavy being dragged away from the underbrush. Then the whispers started again, a chorus of 4 voices. They were all calling for James. The first light. James was alone. He huddled on the cold ground, a small trembling ball of terror in the heart of a whispering darkness. The voices of his friends, now a complete quartet, swirled around him from the rest of the night. They taunted him, pleaded with him, called his names until it lost all meaning, becoming just a sound, a syllable of dread. He pressed his palms against his ears. But the whispers weren't just in the air anymore. They were inside his head, echoing in the hollow spaces of his skull. He squeezed his eyes shut, waited for the end, for the crunch of pine needles that would signal his turn. But it never came. Instead, the blackness slowly began to recede, diluted by the weak grey light. Dawn. The first ray of sun pierced the dense canopy, dappling the forest floor in pale, watery light. As the sun rose higher, the whispering faded, the voices grew fainter and fainter until, with the first touch of direct sunlight on his face, they were gone completely. Silent, a true, natural silence, filled the distant chirps of a waking bird. He had survived. Shaking and on legs that felt like brittle twigs, James forced himself to stand. He didn't look at the camp, at the abandoned tents or the cold grey ashes of the fire pit. His lungs burned. He didn't stop until he burst out of the tree line and onto the dirt road where they had parked the car. He had made it. He leaned against the cold metal of the door, gasping for air, tears of relief streaming down his face. A soft, gentle breeze rustled the needles of the last pine at the edge of the road, right above him. From it came one final, crystal clear whisper, directly into his ear. It was his own voice, calm and final. James. Well, I think this went rather nicely. So please tell me what you think about the new approach, and don't hesitate to leave a comment. I'll answer as many as I can. Thank you all for listening. Bye.